Okay, next condition. So, confidence interval for the population mean, sigma, or the standard deviation is unknown. In the first condition, sigma or the standard population or standard deviation of the population is given. In the second condition, this time it's unknown, meaning it's not given. And n is large. Okay, n is large, meaning n is greater than equal to 30. So how do we determine the confidence interval if sigma it's not given? When we say sigma, you are referring to the standard deviation of the population, and your sample size is greater than 30. Okay, greater than 30. So same concept in the first condition. So your interval still the same. So mu is greater than sample mean minus the margin of error, but less than sample mean plus the margin of error. The only difference is that in solving for margin of error, yung E, okay, E here you're referring to margin of error. Okay, so E is equal to Z alpha over 2 multiplied by S over the square root of N. So since the standard deviation of the population is not given, okay, hindi given, so meaning you are not allowed to use it because it's not given. So the only given in that problem is the standard deviation of the sample. Standard deviation of the sample. Okay? So the given is the standard deviation of the sample. So it's only the difference. Okay? The concept or the procedure in getting the interval of the first condition is the same. The only difference that in getting the margin of error. So in getting the margin of error in the second condition, which is confidence interval for the population mean, sigma is unknown, or the standard deviation of the population is unknown, and n is greater than equal to 30. So to determine the margin of error, that will be Z alpha over 2 multiplied by the sample, the standard deviation of the sample divided by the square root of n. Standard deviation of the sample divided by the square root of n. So that's only the difference. Okay? In your second condition, you're using the standard deviation of the sample. In the first condition, the first example a while ago, your standard deviation is the population. In the second condition, your standard deviation is the sample. Okay? Okay, let's start with the first example. The manager of the theme park wishes to estimate the mean amount of money visitors spend at the park. A random sample of 49 visitors gave a mean of 3,700 and a standard deviation of 600. So find the point estimate of the true mean amount of money visitors spend at the park, and B, construct a 95% confidence interval. So first, look for the best point estimate. Remember, your best point estimate is the sample mean. The best point estimate is the sample mean. So therefore, your sample mean is equal to 3,700. Because according to the problem, a random sample of 49 visitors, okay, it's a sample, gave a mean of 3,700. So therefore, your 3,700, you're referring to your sample mean. Okay, sample mean. So that is your best point estimate, the sample mean. Next, letter B, construct a 95% confidence interval. Okay, interval. So same thing. Mu is greater than sample mean minus E, but less than sample mean plus E. Okay, so we already have the value of the sample mean, which is 3,700. So what is missing? E. Okay, we need to solve for E. So E is equal to Z alpha over 2 multiplied by S divided by square root of N. Okay. Obviously, your S here, since the standard deviation is unknown, so 600 here in the problem, so 600, you're referring to the standard deviation of the sample. So 600, you're referring to the standard deviation of the sample. So since that the sigma is unknown, meaning yung sigma is not given. So what is 600 here pertaining to the problem? That is the standard deviation of what? Of the sample. Okay? So E is equal to, what is your Z alpha over 2? Z alpha over 2. Okay, how do we determine the Z alpha over 2? The given is 95%. So that will be alpha is equal to 1 minus 0.95. So what is your alpha? So 1 minus 0.95. So your alpha is 0.05. So that is your alpha. So your Z alpha over 2 will be Z 0.05 divided by 2. So that will be Z 0.05 divided by 2. So that will be Z 0.025. Now, how do we get the value of Z 0.025? Okay. Get the table. Z 0.025, which is 196. Okay. 1.96. So Z 0.025, using the table, 1.96. Okay. So that is your Z alpha over 2, 1.96. Now, we can now solve for E. So, E is equal to 1.96 multiplied by S, which is 600, divided by the square root of N. What's your square root of N according to the problem? 49 visitors. So, 49 visitors. Okay? So, what is your margin of error? So, 1.96 multiplied by 600 divided by the square root of 49. So you do have 168. Okay? 168. So that's your margin of error, 168. So your interval, going back, okay? So mu is greater than sample minus E, but less than sample mean plus E. So mu is greater than, what is your sample mean? 3,700 minus 168, but less than 3,700 plus 168. So mu is greater than 3,700 minus 168, 3,532, but less than 3,700 plus 168, 3,868. So that is the interval. Okay? So to interpret, therefore, the 95% confidence interval for the true mean amount of money, you do have to answer the interval and then the interpretation. Visitors spend at the park is between 3,532 and 3,868. That's it. Number 2. A social media analyst wanted to know the average number of Facebook friends that young people of ages 7 to 10 have. She took a random sample of 100 children of the age group and found out that the average number of friends they have is 120 with a sample standard deviation of 12.4. If the analyst wants to be a 95% confident of the range of the mean number of friends, what will be the interval representing this data? So first and foremost, what are the given? So we have sample size, which is 100, and then according to the problem, the mean average of the sample size is 120. Okay, found out that the average number of friends they have is 120. So you're pertaining to the random sample of 100 children. So that is your mean average, which is 120. And then the sample standard deviation, which is S, because the second condition says that the standard deviation of the population is unknown, meaning it's not given. So obviously the given standard deviation is a sample based on the problem. Sample standard deviation is 12.4. Okay, so we need to construct or estimate the 95%. Construct or estimate the 95% confidence interval. So how do we construct or estimate the 95%? So interval will be mu, or the population mean, is greater than the sample mean minus the margin of error, but less than the sample mean plus the margin of error. Okay, we already have the value of the sample mean. The only missing is the margin of error. So how do we solve for the margin of error? So since this is the second condition, which is the second condition says that, what's the second condition? Confidence interval for the population mean when we're in sigma, or the standard deviation of the population is unknown, and n is large, n is greater than equal to 30. So how do we construct a 95% confidence interval? So the interval will be the population mean is greater than the sample minus the margin of error, but less than the sample mean plus the margin of error. So how do we solve for the margin of error if it is in the